George Thomas Robertson. Thomas is named after my one of my uncles. Wescaldonan, born and bred in Winnipeg here. I worked for Shays and Labatt's-Bury for 30 years, on the road for 30 years. There's not too many guys know Manitoba as well as I do. I've had a beer in every hotel in Manitoba. I played soccer and hockey ever since I can remember. Had the blades, had skates on.
When did you first lace on a pair of skates, do you recall?
Oh, I guess I'd be 4 or 5. My dad had a rink at the side of the house. There wasn't too much at all until juvenile hockey. And I went out, I was playing school hockey and at the Olympic rink. And I guess someone saw me playing and they asked me to come to a CUAC tryout for a juvenile team. And I went out and they had their practice an hour before I got there, so the only team that was going out was Winnipeg Monarchs. So I went out with them, juvenile, and I made their club, and I played there for a year, and then 2 years junior after that. Well, I was always a centerman. I don't know why, but I guess I liked carrying this puck. It was pretty good. Yeah, no complaints. Elbow pads there, I think, are a lot better than they are today with all the armor they wear. Art Barnett and Jim Kennedy coached juvenile, and 1 year junior, and then Walter Monson took over Winnipeg Monarchs. The Winnipeg Monarchs was primarily a Fort Rouge group. Everybody was from Fort Rouge. I was the only one out of the whole area, Wescaldonan. And going by streetcar after a game was a rough job after a game at the amphitheater.
Why was that?
Well, a long way out to Wescaldonan. I remember New York Rangers used to train at the amphitheater, their training camp in the spring, or in the fall, and primarily, I think, because most of them, the hockey players then, were from Western Canada. We had ice out here where they didn't have it down east, outside ice, like the Bentleys and the Shibickis and the Colvilles, and they were all from Western Canada. Billy Mazienko, Joe Cooper. Well, they're both pretty scruffy rinks at the time. But I think the amphitheater was originally a horse barn for horse shows. And they put ice in it, and that's why we played there. It was the only indoor rink, it in the Olympic and St. John's College.
How was the ice at the rink?
They were good. Ice, no problem with the ice, ever.
A lot of the guys comment on the temperature of the Olympic rink.
Yeah, could be chilly. Well, Winnipeg Monarchs, and after we won the Memorial Cup, I went to Stratford, Ontario. Played Stratford Crailers. They came to see me in Winnipeg and with my mom and dad and asked if I would go down there and play hockey with them, and they'd give me a job at Crailer Furniture and so much a week to play hockey. And Dunk Daniels went down with me from the Monarchs. So I went there for the year, and we got knocked out by St. Mike's, and that was and then New York Rangers. I went up to New York Rovers for the end of the year with them from Stratford, and I roomed with Freddie Shero and Nick McCoskey and Jackie Gordon. Well, yeah, it was a tough road. We played against Brandon, which had Jukes and Raleigh, and then we played Moose Jaw, and that was a tough one. Well, Red McRae was certainly a star. Unfortunately, he passed away. And Clint Albright, of course. He was outstanding. And Harry Taylor, some from St. James. Raleigh and Jukes were in Brandon. They were pretty good hockey players to play against. And they both went up to New York Rangers the next year. And when we went to Toronto, Connie Smythe owned the Maple Leaf Gardens, and they were rated as 20-1 underdogs. And to the extent that he said if it went 7 games, which he didn't think it would, he'd let every serviceman in free. And at $16,000 seating rink, there was 23,000 there that day, the 7th day when we beat St. Mike's. That was a good series, yeah. Port Arthur, they were a good club. Benny White, I remember a couple of them. I don't remember them being that rough, no. They had some good hockey talent, though. The Fleming McKell and Todd Sloan, Red Kelly. They had a lot of NHLers that turned pro the next year. Well, it was a sellout all the time in Maple Leaf Gardens, yeah. Well, I can't really say I don't remember anything about the crowd. The only guy I remember in that series was Monty Hall. I don't know if you remember Monty Hall. With that TV program from L.A. Well, Monty was in Toronto at the time, and he went to university with my brother. So when he was in radio in Toronto, he wanted tickets. I gave him tickets for all the games. Excellent, and a super guy besides that. He knew hockey because he had played in the Olympics prior to that himself. Well, Todd Sloan was their big gun scoring, and Walter told High Beatty to check him to the extent that if he goes into the dressing room to the washroom, you go with him. Don't leave him alone on the ice alone, and that's exactly what he did. And Beatty played a terrific series. We checked him crazy. Well, I went in on the first one. I went in on the defenseman and just shot a high one over Pat Beamer in the top of the net. And the second one, I had to deke him to go around. I got a pass from Tom Rocky right in front of the net. It was a close game all the way through, yeah. And Gibson played tremendous, too, our goalkeeper. Everybody played well or you don't win. Yes, I signed a C form with some guy in Winnipeg. I can't think of his name offhand. But we signed C forms in the old days, and that tied you up with the club. And I was owned by New York Rangers, and I got traded to Montreal for Buddy O'Connor and Frank Eddles. Well, naturally, Maurice Richard was big then, too, and Bill Dernan. I had a good rapport with all of them. I had no problem with the players. And I became very friendly with Frank Selke Jr. No, I never did seem to get enough confidence in Montreal. I was, actually, I should have stayed, if I'd have had a chance to play longer in the NHL if I'd have stayed with New York. Pretty tough to break into Montreal. Well, I remember playing in Winnipeg at the amphitheater with Locke and Richard, and Dick Irvin was coaching.
What was Dick Irvin like?
Good guy. I like Dick. Well, I scored a goal the first game we played. It was between Charlie Rayner's legs anyway. It was just an ordinary dressing room. There was nothing spectacular about it like they have now with the logo on the carpet and you can't walk on it. What the hell? It should be on the ceiling if you don't want to walk on it, not on the carpet. No, it was nothing spectacular. Joe Carveth from Regina, he played for Detroit prior to that, and he got traded to Montreal for, I can't remember who the trade was, but I roomed with Joe Carveth, and he was a good guy. We became buddies. I remember how, of course, playing against him. And again, Red Kelly. He was with St. Mike's. Oh, I can't remember. I think I had a bit of a fight in Boston one day in the corner. It, I didn't get in too many scraps, though. With the first year, Cincinnati had a team in the American League, and they only had it 1 year. I played in Cincinnati with Wally Stefanu from Winnipeg, and it was good. King Clancy was coaching us there. Well, I got traded to Shore in Springfield, and if you want it on record, I will tell you that Shore is the most hated guy in hockey ever. And not because I was treated badly by him, but others too. I went to their training camp in Woodstock, and he wouldn't give me the money I wanted, so I said, well, I'm going to go home. He thought to Winnipeg. But I went to Stratford, which is only 40 miles away, because I had played there a couple of years before. And that night he phoned my mother in Winnipeg, said, okay, I'll give him the money he wants. Come on back to camp. So I went back to camp, and the first week in the league, I won the Schaefer Award for the outstanding player with the club. And the second week, I won the Schaefer Award for the outstanding player of the club in Massachusetts. And the third week, I didn't, and he suspended me for indifferent play, got all his money back. So I said, that's it, that son of a bitch. So I went down to get my skates, and Earl Siebert, the coach, and also an all-time great, Siebert was out in the hallway, and I said, I want my skates. He said, Shore said not to give them to you. And I said, Earl, there was a big cart there that you put the luggage on to go to the train, because we didn't fly, we went by train. I said, if you don't give me my skates, that cart's going right through that door. So he let me in, and I got my skates, and I buggered off that night. I phoned Tom Rocky in that Outlaw League in Sydney, Nova Scotia, and that's when I went down there, and I loved it. That was the best move I ever made going down the Maritimes. Good league. St. John were loaded with hockey players. Pete Langell was there. It was a good league. Well, it wasn't recognized by the CHA or the American Hockey League. Geez, I guess Red McRae was certainly one of them, a junior hockey player. And a kid by the name of Eddie Dorohoy could handle a puck very well, too. And Elmer Locke could handle a puck. Yeah, Well, Bill Jusda was as tough as anybody, but I played with him later, many years later, he was in Pine Falls and I was in Minnedosa, in that Big Six in Manitoba, years after I was working at the brewery. And he was just like a bear on the ice, but a gentle bear. He was just as soft as could be in the corners. I like Bill very much. It was just terrible the way he ended up too, you know. I guess the Rocket was as stick crazy as anybody. Super guy. When Elmer broke his jaw, I even roomed with him in a couple of road trips. Well, I guess the size of the players compared to the old days, for instance, Billy Mosienko wouldn't be playing today, and many, many more. The Bentleys, Doug and Max Bentley, too thin, too small. They'd never be able to tough it out. And with a crowd they got now, 200 pounds, 225 to 50 pounds, these guys, hockey players. Much bigger league now than it ever was before. I won't say it's better, but the kids are much bigger. Well, the brewery really decided that for me. They asked, I was working there at the brewery at Shays, and then Labatt's took over, and they said, "Are you going to work this fall, or are you going away and play hockey?" I said, "I'm going away." They said, "Well, you better make up your mind. Either going to work or you're going to play hockey." So the next year I got married, and I said, I'll take one more year. I went down to Sault Ste. Marie with Jim Henry in that senior league in Sault Ste. Marie. And that was the last year I played, and then I worked at the brewery. But while I was at the brewery, Brian Hextall had a team in Minnedosa, and that's when we played in that Big Six. Carmen, Brandon, Manitoba, Pine Falls, Bill Juice was there. Oh no, we didn't get any. Yeah, we did. We got $50 a game, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and they gave me money for my car too. I was driving my own car, and I picked up Gabe Pankhurst in Portage, and Brian Hextall. I picked him up on the way out. Yeah, I curled a lot. I curled ACT, Associated Canadian Travelers, and I curled in the Shrine. I was 30 years in the Shrine, in Drum and Bugle Corps, so I had lots to do. And I built a house, had 2 kids. Tom Rocky was a good buddy of mine. He's in Carmen, but I think he's gone blind now. What's his name in Montreal getting $9 million? It's a lot different, I'll tell you. A lot different when you can come up with that kind of dough. When I was thinking, Maurice Richard was making 15 grand one year I was there. People talk to me about the old days, which is nice. I enjoy it. Yes, I have both shoulders. I had 7 separations on my left shoulder, and I was due, as a matter of fact, I went to Pete McDonald at the Pan Am Clinic, and he was going to operate on this one, and I got the X-ray done, and they won't do an MRI until next January the 14th, and then the operation going to be 6 months later. I said, forget the whole goddamn thing. They don't ache. I don't have any problem with it, but there's certain things I can't do. I can't lift it up. I have trouble holding my gun up, and oh shit. But I've lived that way for the last 3 or 4 years, so to hell with it. I'm not going to have the operation. And I only got, how many more years I've got to live? 87 years old. Well, it was getting kind of old, but I see the new form. Here's something for you. My daughter was down there with my grandson about a month ago, and he wanted a sweater, Montreal Canadian sweater, so they went to the New Bell Center and picked up a sweater, and they wanted my name on the back, my number 11, and he told him his granddad played with him in 49 and 50, and they gave him a discount. They gave him a club discount for the sweater. Can you imagine that? And another thing that was amazing to me, when I was in the hospital with my broken hip, I got a card from the alumni saying how sorry they were to hear that I had broken my hip. How the hell did they ever know that? And I still have the card because I have no idea how they ever found out. 2 weeks after I'd broken my hip, I'm in the hospital, I get this card. How the hell did they know? Toe Blake was a hell of a guy, I'll tell you. And I only played 1 game with him in Buffalo. They sent me from Montreal, they sent me to Buffalo, and I played 1 game, and I got traded. They sent me to Washington. I finished the season with Washington, D.C. And another strange thing about playing for New York Rovers, I often think about it. We played an afternoon game in New York and a night game in Baltimore. Can you believe it? By train. 2 games in 1 day. And that was Freddie Sherwin, Jackie Gordon, all Winnipeg boys, Nick McCoskey.